1st meeting of the Westborough Planning Board. I will remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded. We have a continuation of the public hearing and decision for special permit 2022-2 Banfield Pet Hospital at 290 Turnpike Road, Suite 180. We have a submission of a preliminary subdivision plan for 45 Flanders Road by Waterman Design. Continuation of a public hearing for 180-182 Turnpike Road site plan application. Continuation of a public hearing for earth moving permit 25 Gleason, and a continuation of public hearing for 190-212 Oak Street site plan application, and an update on Village Commons at 1 Gleason. It being after 6:30, I will start with the public hearing and decision for the special permit 22-2 Banfield Pet Hospital. Jim Robbins, I know we had distributed a draft decision on this. This public hearing is still open. We got a letter from the applicant who has also reviewed the decision and had no comments or revisions. Do I need to read that into the record, Jim?
Yeah, I would, because he's assenting to the conditions.
I don't have a paper copy, so give me just...
I can read it if you want.
Yeah, would you please?
Sure. In a letter dated November 1, 2022, to myself and to Kristen regarding special permit number 2022-2 for 290 Turnpike Road, Banfield Veterinary. Dear Mr. Jim Robbins, I am in receipt of your draft decision of our special permit number 2022-2 for Banfield Pet Hospital at 290 Turnpike Road, dated 11/1/22. We've reviewed the conditions outlined in the decisions as listed below and deemed them acceptable. We agree to comply with these conditions of approval. Moving forward, please accept this letter as acknowledgement and acceptance and move forward with our special permit approval. And that's from Jeffrey Hammond, principal at Scott Edwards Architecture, LLP.
All right. Any questions on that? Do you want to take us through the decision first, and then we'll see if there's any public comment?
And I had spoken with Jeff about this prior to his receiving the draft, so he knew what to expect. So in the draft dated November 1, 2022, first page outlines the permit and the dates that the hearing was held, the special permit hearing, the dates of advertisement in the Worcester County Telegram and Gazette regarding a plan entitled Banfield Pet Hospital Space Plan drawn by MS/EA Scott Edwards Architecture, dated 8/3/22. Over on page 2 is a list of the materials that we received, the application, the proposed plan, and the letter from Jeff Hammonds, which is the outline of the project, requesting a continuance to the special permit. In the next section, I've outlined the existing conditions at RK Speedway Plaza at 290 Turnpike Road, noting that in the Highway Business District, where the property resides, you require a special permit for a veterinary clinic. The next section is the project description, and it's a brief discussion of Banfield's proposal. Banfield is one of 1,100 clinics nationwide. I believe they're the largest veterinary clinic in the country. Banfield Pet Hospital is proposing a 4,422 square foot veterinary clinic at Suite 180 at Speedway Plaza. There'll be no indoor facilities or exterior changes. The typical Banfield veterinary facilities, such as what's proposed at this location, provide full-service veterinary care, including diagnostic capabilities, surgery room, pharmacy, and retail pet supply. All clinic activities occur within the tenant space. They do not provide outdoor amenities such as dog runs or storage yards, no grooming or long-term kenneling. Boarding or overnight facilities are not provided by Banfield. So the proposed veterinary clinic will primarily service the neighboring community and provide a necessary service. And I am finding that more and more, this is just an aside from me, these clinics are locating in shopping centers, as you see even human care, urgent care facilities in shopping centers, because people use them as multi-purpose trips.
I have one question. What happens in a situation where a pet is really so sick it can't go home and needs to be kept overnight? Does anybody ever, I mean, I really didn't think about that question until now, but it occurred to me that in that kind of a situation, is there kind of an exception whereby since a pet couldn't be removed?
I asked that question. They said they don't provide that service. I'm not saying that they don't on an emergency basis, but they don't
that's
offer
what
that
they
service.
said, they don't provide it, but I became a little concerned about the fact if you have a pet that, cannot go home because they're being intravenously fed or something, whether there are, whether they do keep a pet overnight. That was just my question.
May have to go home with one of the clinicians. I've seen that before. Or they may have to go to another veterinary doctor. Yeah.
Get it to another facility.
Impossible. Yeah, I'm sorry. It just occurred to me with, no overnight stays, whether.
Well, that whole facility is governed by the state, so I'm sure the state has guidelines on what to do.
Well,
What they are.
yeah, I don't either. Anyway, just a question. Okay, sorry.
All right,
Having lots
Jim,
of
do you want
pets
to
in
continue with that?
Sure. On page 3, the findings section talks about the Westborough zoning bylaws, and that we advertised the hearing in the Westborough Telegram and Gazette on September 9th and September 16th, references the plans that you reviewed, and it further states that because it's a veterinary clinic in the Highway Business District, it requires a special permit. Basically the things that I just said in the previous section. The third paragraph, however, says under section 1330 of the zoning bylaws, a special permit shall be granted unless, because of a condition peculiar to the particular case but not generally true for similar permitted uses on other sites in the same district, it appears that nuisance, hazard, or congestion will be created, or that for other reasons there'll be substantial harm to the neighborhood or derogation from the intent of the purpose of the bylaw. In making its decision, the planning board found no evidence of condition peculiar to this case that would not be true for similar uses on other sites in the same district. And it's really key for you to make that finding. That's the whole point of the special permit. You're granting them special privileges because the use is similar to other uses in the same district. And you have a veterinary clinic that you just permitted about 14 months ago at 1 Oak Street at the corner of Lyman and Route 9. So you have a similar circumstance already in the Highway Business District. At the bottom of the page, it says this permit allows the use of 4,422 square feet of the existing building at 290 Turnpike Road for an animal hospital as described in the project application and is provided in the Westborough zoning bylaws. Then it notes that what is required under Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 9, allows you to place conditions in the special permit. The conditions are as follows. The applicant shall designate 2 parking spaces nearest the frontage, the front entrance of the animal hospital for use of customers that may be transporting an animal in distress. Number 2, the applicant shall provide 1 or more trash receptacles designated for animal waste along the sidewalk at the front of the building near the entrance to the animal hospital. Number 3, any signage associated with new animal hospital shall conform to the requirements of the Westborough zoning bylaw. Number 4, the applicant shall install appropriate building materials to soundproof the common walls shared with adjoining commercial uses to reduce animal sounds from infiltrating adjoining commercial spaces. Number 5, prior to the final certificate of occupancy, all plans approved through the special permit process with all comments from all town departments shall be verified through the as-built plans. These as-built plans shall be approved by the building department or other appropriate departments to verify conformance with the approved plans and permits. The building commissioner may withhold occupancy should any of these items be found deficient.
Let me just ask one quick question. A lot of this is governed by the State Department of, I don't know, Health or Veterinary Medicine or something, so they have to get approvals from them, but we don't make any mention in our...
The Board of Health letter does.
Excuse me?
The Board of Health letter does,
Okay.
which is noted in this
Fine,
decision.
that's all I'm asking. Sorry.
And by the way, the building commissioner will be looking for that.
Well, no,
before
I'm
he
sure
grants
they
an
would. I just
occupancy.
didn't know whether we as performance, when you say, all Westborough zoning, we talk about our own zoning laws, whether we also include any state or federal approvals?
Yeah, that's a
that are
good question.
required?
The same thing happened for the clinic at 1 Oak Street.
Okay.
Number 6 is just the list of the town departments, and you'll see that item B is the memo from the Board of Health, dated September 2, and then is the list of other town comments that we received. Number 7 is boilerplate, simply states that we recognize that the plans could be modified during the building permit process, and that the applicant, if there are modifications, needs to come back to the planning board, and the planning board shall determine by majority vote whether any proposed modification to the project, regardless of the source of such modification, requires a formal amendment to the special permit, or alternately, whether the modification is consistent with the special permit issued by this decision, and the purpose and intent of the applicable conditions sought to be modified, and therefore a public hearing is not required. Number 8 is non-performance. That's what we have in all our permits. And then that's the end of the decision.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public? Okay, do we have a motion on this?
I move the planning board approve the special permit application for 290 Turnpike, Banfield Veterinary, with the conditions as stated in the special permit decision number 2022-2, dated November 1st, 2022.
Second.
Okay, well, hold on, I think we need to close the public hearing.
No, you close the public hearing after you vote.
We do, okay, that's fine. We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor? That's 5-0 in favor of approving. Do we have a motion on closing?
I move we close the public hearing.
Okay, I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's 5-0 in favor of closing the public hearing on 290 Turnpike Road. Next item on the agenda is a submission of a preliminary subdivision plan for 45 Flanders Road. Waterman Design is here.
Do we have to close the special permit?
We just did.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, no, sorry, never mind.
yeah, thanks. You gotta always check me on those because I will.
No, I apologize.
Won't be the first time. Gentlemen, name and title for the record, please.
Go ahead, Barry. He just wants your name and who you represent.
Barry Atchison, WDA Design Group.
A little bit of an introduction here. So for the board's purposes, Barry and Waterman Design have been working with town staff over the past couple of years to put together an application for subdivision. Their site is at 45 Flanders Road, also includes 48 and 52 Flanders Road, I believe.
48
48 only, okay. 45, 48, and 48 is going to be the address?
is the number that's in between.
Okay. So heretofore, we will refer to it as 48 Flanders Road. Okay. It's a 3-lot conventional subdivision. The size of the lot is smaller than 10 acres, so the applicant has the choice whether or not to propose a open space community or a conventional subdivision. Due to the topography on the land, I think it's going to behoove them to have a conventional subdivision, and that's their choice. And so Barry this evening is going to give us a very brief overview of the 3-lot subdivision, and he's already submitted his plans to me. I've reviewed them with Barry, and they are complete. So I can accept them, but the subdivision regulations require the planning board to actually receive them at a regularly scheduled meeting. If this were a special permit application, it would go through the special permit process. Conventional subdivisions and preliminary plans are called out to be different in the subdivision bylaw.
All right, Barry, do you want to go ahead when you're ready?
Yeah.
Oh, we can't tell.
However you want me to do it.
This one, let's see.
Oh, yeah. I actually walked it before.
Thank you very much. As Jim had mentioned, our proponent is looking for a conventional subdivision. It's an original section of land off of Flanders Road. It's originally a 8.3 acre lot that they will propose to subdivide. Eventually, the three lots will come about, it will end up being about 6.5 acres. There's 114 feet of frontage this lot will have to build a 600-foot long roadway with a cul-de-sac at the end. He intends on building 3 homes on it, roughly 3,200 square foot homes. And
What was the size of the homes?
3,200, 40 by 80, somewhere in that vicinity. I believe the one on the far right-hand side will be a little bit smaller due to the topography and the availability of the land.
So, sorry, 40 by 80?
40 by 80. I believe that's 3,200.
Right, but is it going to be 2 levels?
2 at 3,200.
2 levels? Or are they going to be ranches?
Not exactly sure.
So are they going to be 6,400?
Yeah, no, I believe it's just a single floor home there. The utilities for the property, there is existing water and sewer that they'll tap into off of Flanders Road. The sewer system, due to the town regulations, will only require or allow one of the homes to connect up to sewer. The other 2 will have on-site septic systems. The drainage system will have the roof leaders to an infiltration system, and some additional runoff and storage will be collected from the road into the larger detention bases on the left. Any overflow that comes down the road will have to go into an existing culvert that cuts across the road and down to the south of Flanders Road. The proponent is looking to ask for waivers, roughly 4 of them. They would like to go from 6% grade to a 9% grade going up the road. They'd like to reduce the leveling area prior to entering Flanders Road from 100 feet to a 50-foot distance. They'd also like to reduce the width of the road from 30 feet down to 26 feet, and also reduce the off-grading of the road from the town's 3.1 to 2.1 off-grading. All these are to reduce the amount of excavation and disturbances to install this development. Is there any other questions or concerns?
Anything from the board on this?
I think we really look at it. And then say,
Well, this is a preliminary.
Right,
We
I
don't
know.
have a final subdivision plan
We're
for,
just looking to-
so
Go ahead.
so I had some questions. You've got really 4 lots, it looks like. You've got C1, C2, and C3, which are pretty unusual shape, but appear to be conforming building lots, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Correct.
Then you have Lot 2, and that is not a conforming building lot. And I assume that that would stay undeveloped.
Correct. There's,
And they're not going to ask for a variance on that or anything.
no, the A&R that they plan on doing, which I have up on the screen there, is to provide some additional land for 52, which is the far right-hand side, and make Lot 50, or house number 50, conforming, as well as leaving enough room for enough frontage for.
House 50 is getting demolished, right?
That's what I understand, and I was,
So
it says on the
what are they
plan.
going to make conforming? 52 will end up being a conforming lot. They're going to take ownership of Lot 2, but we're not going to end up with a 4th building lot here?
not that I'm aware of.
No, we're not. It's more of a state. Okay.
Okay,
I think with the A&R, they're going to make lot 2 conforming, so then they would not raise,
How are they going to make it conforming? It's 60,000 square foot zoning, isn't it?
it's existing. So what are they going to, so they don't take it down?
Well, no, it's not existing. If you look at the first page, the existing lot is,
I'm sorry, the house on the lot is existing.
sure, but the existing lot is,
Right.
you can't take an existing lot and make it less in conformance, and they're taking the lot size and going from 8 acres down to 50,000 square feet. With the zoning, 60,000 square feet.
50,
50? And how much frontage is on it?
200,
So it will be conforming.
it will be
So then
conforming.
they're not going to take down lot, they're not going to take down.
No, that's
number
fine. I
50.
thought it was going to be a non-conforming lot, but the,
the land,
building
yeah, so
commissioner
that
will
would make the
determine.
land out the back of number 52, just land for his non-buildable.
Yeah, parcel B would be non-buildable unless
Right.
that's going to be conveyed to the subdivision lot, or no?
Yes.
parcel A and B, I don't know what that parcel A is.
Looks like parcel B is going to be part of 52.
Right.
Correct.
So Lot 2 will be a building, I mean, that's going to be,
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a buildable lot. I mean, that's up to the building commissioner
we've had
to,
discussions about this before because the house is a historical house. And they had come to the and taking it down. Similarly, quite unique historical things in it, including a beehive oven.
So is parcel A going to be conveyed to lot 2?
Correct.
So that's, yeah, that's probably addressing the side yard issue.
well,
Parcel A is a
So
little
the
sliver
notes are
between
on the
52.
they're concerned about the side yard if they're going to demolish the house.
I'm saying they're not going to demolish the house.
Well, it says here,
I know-
existing
I know
house
what it
to be
says, but they're probably
raised.
not going to.
I would be happier if they didn't.
I don't know why they would, what, like, if you're keeping that lot as a lot, why would they demolish the house?
Well, for a more
Probably
expensive
pretty
house.
old, I don't know.
Oh, you think they tear it down and build another one on that lot?
I don't know. While they're building 3 others, I would think that
it's
that
a
would be the
historic
time
house.
to- I don't know what the value is of that house, or, you know, what the condition is, if it's
Which house?
50.
50.
I actually think 50 is a converted barn. It was a barn. This, one time was a gentleman's farm, and 50 was the barn. And
No, 52 was the barn, wasn't it?
so it looks to me like 50
was the original house.
50 is the house? I thought 52 was the house. Okay.
Right.
But they're both residential currently.
Right, but 52 is a house that's over a garage, essentially, I believe.
Okay.
So I got to say, I'm not really happy with dodging with all these crazy lots we're creating to avoid the corner lot requirements, but I feel like it's within the letter of the law, but it ends up with some really goofy shapes. And it seems to be needlessly weird. But I understand that desire to get an extra lot of it. All right, those are my only comments. John, did you have something else?
My question was, and this will probably be answered in the process, but what are the upfront issues with changing the grade from 6 to 9?
So he can, under the subdivision laws, he's presenting a yield plan that shows he could build under the regulations, but it's better and more sensitive to the land if he doesn't. Because if he does build under the regulations, the project will be an earth-moving project. He'll be trying to lower the hill, whereas even with the grading on this plan, you'll see that there's a retaining wall in the first lot on the right. But the slope will be less on the lots. The slope will be greater on the road, but less on the lots. And the grading actually will be better for drainage under the requested waiver plan. So we looked at this several different ways, and we found that even though it looks severe, it's better than what it would be if he just maintained the grades of a conventional plan.
Still looks like a very dangerous driveway to me.
It's going to be a steep site. It's already a steep site. It's a site on a hillside.
No, I mean,
It looks like it's
I was
being
concerned
down
about
to the
driveway
road.
from the beginning.
Yes.
It is.
So is there, I haven't had a chance to really look at this. What kind of stormwater infrastructure is at the intersection of this proposed road and Flanders, so that all the water's not just running onto Flanders?
Yeah, it'll be collected into below-grade infiltration or
At the-
into
at
a
the
chamber,
intersection?
held there, and then distributed off whatever overflow and so
At the
forth.
intersection or before
At-
the intersection?
Before the intersection.
All right, I have a couple more questions. When this was marketed back in 2017, it listed the site size, and the assessor has it as 7.3 acres. You've remeasured it, it looks to be the same shape, and you're coming up with 6.5, 7.5, over 8 acres. I'm just curious where, like how, were we that off on our assessment?
That I don't know. The original existing condition had it at 8.3 acres, and that was for the property of number 50, which included 50 plus parcel B and everything in parcel C, from what I understood. So if that labeled that as 10 acres before, I am not aware of that.
Oh, labeled it as 7.3, so you've somehow gotten extra acreage out of it. And I assume,
Where you getting 7 point, where you seeing?
well, that's what the assessor has it as,
Okay.
7.3. And the shape is basically the same shape as the existing parcel that you show here. So I'm just curious, obviously you know what you're doing as far as surveying. I'm just curious if we had it assessed wrong.
I don't know. I'll have to research into that, get into it. I'm
yeah.
not aware of it.
Another issue that was on the listing in 2017, which I believe is when your owner acquired it, it mentions a land trust has a trail easement. Is that shown on this?
Yes, it is.
That is.
Top right-hand corner.
The which page?
It's on the existing
On the
EC.
R2.
If you look over your
so it
shoulder,
just-
you can see it highlighted on the screen above you.
Yep. So it goes down the rear of the lot?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. That's all I have for now.
So this plan will be sent to all town departments for comments. They'll have 45 days to comment, then they'll come back. This doesn't require a public hearing. Preliminary plans don't require a public hearing. Definitive plans do. If you approve the preliminary plan, they'll advance these to engineering standards and come back in a definitive plan.
I think one of the only things might want, I know that Flanders Road is under significant construction now, and, I presume that we're not going to restore that road and have it damaged in any way, or, I don't want that to happen. I also don't want you to have to connect water and sewer and dig up the street, so I'd like that to be coordinated with DPW.
That has already taken place, and water service has already been installed. And we're working with Lisa at the moment to figure out the sewer connection and get that done.
So briefly on this plan, there is shown grading work.
When you say sewer connection, you're only going to have one sewer connection for the existing house.
Correct.
So the remainder are going to be septic anyway.
Correct. But there wasn't, back when they designed and installed the sewer up Flanders Road, they did not leave a service lateral for that particular property. Excuse me.
All right, I just want to make sure it gets done so that when that road is resurfaced, which I assume it's going to be resurfaced after they're done, that we don't have to dig it up again, right?
I think
usually there's like a 3-year.
So actually on this plan on sheet C3.0, it shows in the road where they're going to do road work. It's
Okay.
shown on this plan, but it's only in a conceptual fashion. But Barry worked with the Department of Public Works now for almost a year to look at the line of sight along this and identify where the water service would occur. And so while they were out there working in Flanders Road within the last month, they made sure that the area for the connection was already in place and connected.
Okay.
And I'm sure that Lisa will discuss that when she returns.
Better get you out of here before I think of something else. Anything else from the board?
I would just say, focus on landscaping between the houses along Flanders behind so that the road is not an issue. Jim, this doesn't qualify for any affordable, does it?
I'm sorry,
It doesn't qualify for any affordable, does it?
does not.
Gotta be 5 or more. All right, I think that's it for now. Do we need to act on anything here, Jim, or just move on?
I wrote a motion for you to accept the application because the regulations require that the board accept the application at a regular scheduled meeting.
All right, anybody want to,
I move that the planning board accept the preliminary subdivision plan submittal for 45 Flanders Road as submitted by Waterman Design Associates.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of accepting that preliminary design? That's 5-0 in favor. Thank you, Barry. We'll see you again soon, not tonight, right?
Nope.
Okay. Not going to hang around and just watch again?
We'll see.
Thanks again for that. I know that was a long night, and that it must have been frustrating for you to.
It's a learning experience.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is continuation of the public hearing for 180, 182 Turnpike Road site plan application. We received a letter from the applicant today. I will read it into the record, received it yesterday, October 31st, 2022. Addressed to the planning board regarding 180, 182 Turnpike Road. To the members of the planning board, we are scheduled for a continuation of the public hearing for a site plan review application on November 1st, 2022 for 180, 182 Turnpike Road. At the last planning board meeting on October 25th, we were asked to respond to a letter presented by the Walker Meadows attorney. We were also asked to consider compromises to some of the issues raised by Walker Meadows. As a result of the time needed to properly respond, my client is requesting that the November 1st hearing on this matter be continued until the meeting of the planning board currently scheduled for November 15th, 2022. Anticipating this matter may require additional hearing dates, I respectfully grant the planning board additional time as needed through December 6th, 2022 for continued public hearings. Very truly yours, Marshall Gould, attorney for the applicant. Any questions? All right, anybody ready to motion on that?
I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for the site plan review application of 180-182 Turnpike Road till Tuesday, November 15th at 6:30 PM.
We second that motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor of continuing that hearing is 5-0. Next item on the agenda is continuation of the public hearing for the earth-moving permit at 25 Gleason Street. We also have a letter requesting a continuance on this. We'll read it into the record, dated October 28th, 2022, addressed to the Westborough Planning Board regarding special permit earth-moving on the Ward property, Gleason Street in Westborough, Mass. Dear Mr. Robbins, on behalf of Walter Ward, the landowner, and Milford Stone, the operator, collectively the applicants, we request a continuance of that public hearing scheduled for November 1st, 2022 until the Planning Board's first meeting in December, presumably December 6th, 2022. As discussed during the first public hearing with the Planning Board, the Conservation Commission indicated the wetland area that was altered had begun revegetating beyond the original limits as staked in the field. The Commission required the new limits be delineated, flagged in the field, and located by survey. The areas were delineated by Ecotech and subsequently located by Feldman Geospatial late last month. The surveyor has been unable to process the field data and update the survey plan. I spoke with the surveyor today and have been assured the updated survey plan will be issued by Friday, November 4th, 2022. We will then complete and forward the necessary plan revisions and supplemental information requested by DPW in advance of the December hearing. We apologize for the unforeseen delay and appreciate your patience. We look forward to seeing the Planning Board in December. Sincerely, Land Design Collaborative, signed Michael J. Scott. Any questions on that continuance? Somebody want to make a motion on that?
I move the planning board continue the public hearing for the earth-moving special permit application for 25 Gleason Street to the first planning board meeting in December 6, 2022, at 6:30 p.m. as requested by the applicant.
Second that.
Okay, any discussion of that motion? All those in favor of that continuance? That's 5-0 in favor. Next item on the agenda. Continuation of public hearing for 190-212 Oak Street site plan application. We also received a continuance request on this site plan. We have a letter dated November 1st, 2022, addressed to Jim Robbins, the town planner. Jim, we hereby request continuance of the public hearing on Hana Place, otherwise known as 190-212 Oak Street, scheduled for tonight to the next planning board meeting, and that's signed Farouk Ansari, the owner. Any discussion of that? Anybody want to make that motion?
I move that the planning board continue the public hearing for the site plan review application of 190-212 Oak Street to Tuesday, November 15th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. as requested by the applicant.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor? That's 5-0 in favor of continuing the site plan application for Oak Street. Next item on the agenda, we have a discussion and update on Village Commons at 1 Gleason Street. Mr. Ansari, if you could just come up and state your name and title for the record, and then if you, Jim, do you want to preface this with any remarks? Or just have him give us
So last meeting, we asked Farouk to do several things. First was to address the outstanding issues with regard to the Design Review Board. As you know, I sent an email to the board October 19th outlining several outstanding items. I met with the applicant today on the site. He has completed, of the 8 items, he's completed 5 items. The other 3 items will go to the Design Review Board for a change to the specifications. I don't anticipate any problems with that. He's installed similar fixtures and will change one window to comply with the plan. So I don't see a problem with those issues, at least on unit 13 or 14, but he has to go to the Design Review Board to get that finalized. Also, the site conditions. So there were, as you know, over the last year, many concerns for drainage on the site, concerns for grading, which of course will be completed after he does all his site work. We also have other items on the plan, such as the Victory Gardens for the residents and the pedestrian connection to 11 Gleason Street, which is the Westborough Village parcel, the commercial parcel. So the pedestrian connection connects the commercial and residential development at Village Commons to 11 Gleason Street, which is their commercial development as part of Westborough Village. That needs to be completed as well. We had asked, or Farouk had asked the town engineer if they would do a bond estimate for a bond reduction to reflect the amount of items that were complete. Lisa is in the process of doing a bond estimate. However, I don't think we can give any reductions till we know what the true value is of the outstanding items. I don't know if Farouk wants to continue that request. His other concerns, of course, are getting occupancy for units number 13 and 14. And I think that after he appears in front of the Design Review Board, those issues will be cleared up. However, the Planning Board's issues are still outstanding. That have to do with the site and the bond. So I think your discussion this evening with Mr. Ansari has to do with the bond and his moving forward to get those two occupancies.
Okay. Questions from the board? Mr. Ansari, comments?
I had placed a bond about 3 or 4 years ago, and an awful lot of work has been completed against the bond. Never asked for a bond reduction, never did. For the first time, I asked Lisa about 2 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, to give me a bond reduction because there's just too much money sitting there. Currently, the worth of the bond is $430,000. That was the original bond that I had placed, when Carl was in the office. And I asked for that, and I did get an email back from Lisa saying that she may or may not, she doesn't think that money may be adequate for completing what's the remainder of the items. Well, I strongly disagree with that. And she said, well, she's on vacation right now. After she comes back or whenever, or whoever's going to do it, recalculate the bond to see if there's enough there to finish the work. At that point, I said, that's just fine if that's what they want to do. Now, in the meantime, we have been following the planning board conditions and marching orders that the market rate unit would be the last unit to receive the certificate of occupancy. And just today, the building inspector signed off the last affordable unit. So all affordable units are gone, finished. And 14 is the last one. And the people who purchased 14 I've been very patiently waiting for a very long time to move in, a fairly long time, but I had told them very clearly that I cannot even ask for an occupancy permit on 14 till number 13, which is the last affordable unit, gets the occupancy permit. So those are the marching orders that I've been going with. But recently, when I was looking for an occupancy for number 14, after the 13th unit would be, CO'd, I received this email from Lisa, and I said, wait a minute now we're going to go back and reassess everything. These people are just waiting. The unit is complete, is 100% complete. Although I had not invited the building inspector for this final sign-off, we have all the other sign-offs. Jim inspected from the DRB standpoint today, his final inspection. I don't know if he's signed off or not, but there are a couple of little things. They should be okay. But I have not asked for a final on that. What I request the planning board is that, there's adequate bond to finish the leftover work. The biggest item, in my opinion, and I have a lot of experience building, is the paving, the second coat of the entire subdivision. That's the biggest ticket item. And I think in today's day and age and today's prices, it should not cost me any more than $35,000, maybe $40,000 to do that. That's the biggest, item remaining. The rest of them are relatively simple. But all the big ticket items have been completed in the past, so that's where we are at. We still have $430,000 of bond standing.
So what are you actually asking us for? I mean, we have no authority to essentially issue the final CO for Unit 14. That's up to the building department as long as building department has received the sign-offs from the appropriate departments here in town. And so consequently, that's up to Jim, it's up to the other department heads to sign off on that. So, I mean, you're asking us to do what with 14? I mean, we obviously can't do anything because that's up to you working with the building department. And as far as the bond goes, I want to see what Lisa comes out with. I mean, there is no reason, I think, under any circumstances to reduce the bond. There are too many things outstanding. They keep getting more outstanding. And it's, you know, I would not be in favor of reducing the bond because I think probably the bond is going to be less than the work that actually needs to be done. And I think
Yes.
we're quite lucky that we're not going to ask you for more money.
Yes. Through the chairman again, Hazel, we were not expecting the planning board would approve the CO or anything like that. The building inspector does that. But I just wanted to make sure that the path is paved for him to do what he's got to do. I have completed all of the inspections, and his would be the final one. And Lisa obviously has to sign on that permit as a DPW, person. But that inspection was done by Lisa at least a month ago, but for some reason they didn't sign off on it. But now they brought this bond issue. So that's where we are at. I mean, so Jim said to come and talk with you.
Fred, do you have comments on that?
Fred Leonardo, Community Development Director, for the record. So what I'm looking for the planning board, if I may, is unfortunately, Mr. Ansari sometimes leaves his projects open for some time. So the last hook, if you will, is the last C of O for the last market rate unit. Once I issue that, there's basically nothing else that I can kind of keep in bay for this project to be completed. So I'm looking for some guidance from the board on how you want to handle that. If it's strictly through the bond, before we issue that last C of O, I'd just like to make sure that the board is comfortable with that. Because once I issue it, there's nothing left. There's really no recourse I have for that development.
Brooke, go ahead.
I do want to bring it to everybody's attention that we still have the commercial portion of the project that's still sitting there. So there's still, the leverage is still there. So the whole thing is one part and parcel. When the bond was constructed, it was to include everything. So you do have some teeth in there. It's not like you don't. So.
Well, so if I may comment on that, please?
Yep.
So we've divorced the commercial property from the C of Os. That was originally in the right, and not to be kind of an idiot here, but I want to make sure that whatever we do is in writing, because sometimes Mr. Ansari interprets things one way and the town interprets them completely different. So whatever the decision is here tonight, I want to make sure it's in writing and that we're all in agreement in that. So the commercial properties don't help the town at any point because he may never build those, and he's kind of gotten a pass on that.
He has one built, right? And it's only a shell?
Correct.
So if he wanted occupancy for that, he'd have to have your approval.
Yes, but there's no imminent plan for that building. So by the time anything was done with it, it may not be worth anything because it's an idle building at this point. Nobody's talked to me about any plans to do anything with that building.
And Fred, also the laundry list, which for the bond estimate that we've looked at, in other words, what you're saying is that if you go ahead and issue the CO on the 14th unit, we have nothing except for the bond to make him complete this work.
That is 100% correct.
And the other thing, too, is that one thing that Fred didn't mention is that there are other items that support the residential units, such as
Right.
the garages, the clubhouse, the amenities in the landscape areas, and of course the drainage, and the other things that I mentioned earlier, the Victory Gardens, the pedestrian connection. All of those things would be guaranteed by a bond. That's why it's so important to know that, one, the bond is adequate, and two, that it's easily accessible. And what's Fred concerned about, and what I've been concerned about, is the snail's pace of this project.
Right.
You accepted a construction bond security of $430,000 $527. I think that's really what it is, and 42 cents. Back in 2017, that was 5 years ago, there's only 5 cottages here and 3 garage barns, 4 garage barns and a clubhouse. I mean, that project should not have taken 5 years to build. And with the economy the way it is, I am concerned that you need to have adequate security. We don't want to finish this project. Remember, the town's not going to accept this road. This is going to remain a private road.
Right.
So we have any interest in this. We want to make sure that this project is done right. And the last thing we have after the last CO is the bond.
Yeah,
Well,
I want to echo that. I'm just looking at your construction schedule that you gave us in June. You targeted September 1st as the completion of the final paving and sidewalks. You targeted July 31st as completion of the 14th unit. I mean, you've consistently been over your self-imposed deadlines. So it's awfully hard to give up any leverage that we have to get you to complete this. But I'm also sympathetic to the buyer of that unit who's waited for 2 years for occupancy. I need to hear from the engineer to know how far off we are on the bond. I certainly won't agree, I won't personally agree to reduce the bond unless the engineer's estimates are lower than the 430 that we're holding. But as far as the occupancy of that unit 14, I don't want to hold it up to wait for the engineer to come back or for another meeting, but I'd like, I know we're at risk. I wish I knew how much we were at risk, if it's going to be 800,000 to finish what's left, or if it's going to be 450.
So
I don't want to put
if I may,
Right.
Mr. Robbins brings up an excellent point, which I kind of forgot. So the clubhouse, which is an amenity to all the units out there, is in frame, but recently in talking to Mr. Ansari, he's actually going to separate the permits for the clubhouse and the garage because he wants occupancy of the garage. That clubhouse, who knows when that'll be done. So that's an amenity that there's no hook on that either. If he never finishes it, it kind of sitting there.
John?
Not to be callous, but isn't that the residents' issue with Mr. Ansari? They would sue him for not providing the amenities that they've agreed to?
I guess it was part of the development, though. It was part of the planned development. Again, if the planning board's okay with this clubhouse maybe never getting finished.
I'm not okay with it. It's just, at some point, I'm assuming these people in the crowd are the buyers, they need to move into their house. And yeah, it's a tough situation. My other question.
Well, he shouldn't have sold the house based on the timeline of the schedule.
My other question is, how was the amount of the bond decided? And why are we so far off potentially now?
It was 3 years ago, John.
It was 3 years ago, but usually you build in a
than
contingency or
three.
an inflation contingency.
Yeah, I mean, it was,
And if work is.
5 years old.
5 years.
But work has been done that would have counted against the bond. So how are we so far off with the work remaining and what's remaining?
We
in the
don't know
bond?
what the number is until the town engineer gives us a new number.
yeah, we don't know how far off it is. It could be, we could actually have room to reduce it, but I don't think so. I think we're going to be under the actual cost to complete it, but I don't think the town really wants to call in the bond and complete it ourselves. Farouk, go ahead.
Can I say something? Yeah. Okay. I don't think there should be a lot of insecurities about the clubhouse not being finished. It's only 3 items are left in the clubhouse: the siding, the roofing, and inside plaster. There's not much else in the clubhouse and finishing the bathroom. So, I mean, it has a metal roof. The garages, the roof is done because the roof is fiberglass and is very readily available. Metal roof, you got to wait for a month and a half to get it. So it's on order, and so is the stucco. There's a special stucco on the clubhouse side. believe it or not, as soon as it's here, it's going to be done. Believe it, I have that conviction that.
Yeah, so
it's not-
when did you order those?
About a month and a half ago.
Okay, so after you told us it was going to be done on September 1st.
As soon as the roof arrives, then they can, it's a metal roof. So if you go and look at it, it's 100% complete inside. I mean, rough frame.
When did you frame the clubhouse?
Excuse me?
When did you frame the clubhouse?
The framing was completed about 3 weeks ago, 3.5 weeks ago, maybe a month at the very most.
You've been in this project for 3 years, and now you're scrambling to...
Okay. The reason we were not able to do those garages and the clubhouses, the way this whole project is designed, Mr. Chairman, is there's no way to get into the project with big trucks and machines, so we left that little area, the only area that we can expend, to leave it open so the machines could go in and out. Otherwise, the space between the two adjacent houses is very, very little. You cannot have a machine go through it. That's why we had to do that the last. So it's all done now. I mean, all the houses are done, and the clubhouse is the last item. Even the garages are done, except for siding.
Yeah, but if you look at the list that we got on the outside items, every single one of these is for the benefit of those people that are living in those houses. There's not anything that is not of a benefit to the residents that we have. And I am very concerned that these are not going to get done based on the dealings the planning board and the design review board have had with Mr. Ansari. So are we as a town going to be in a situation where these are not going to get done, the bond will be forfeited, which we will then fight over, and then the town may be in the situation where they will have to finish these items? And that's a situation I do not want to see the town or a planning board in. So I'm not quite sure where to go. I think at this point, I would like to see what Lisa's estimate is on what the finishing estimates are this. But, you know, take a look at the list. It's all going to be unfinished things around this entire project, and they're never going to get done.
And people have been living in this project for, when was the first unit occupied? 2 years. So people have been living in this project without all this for 2 years. So, yeah.
Yeah, but why are we, I mean, how are we going to hold up occupancy on that last unit to get this resolved? I don't agree with that as a method of getting this resolved. I don't know what the right method is, but I don't think that's fair to the future taxpayer.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this puts us in a situation which we have been in with this particular project as to when those COs have gotten delivered. And we're going to end up with no leverage on doing this. I am in sympathy for the people that bought it, but this is Mr. Ansari's problem, not ours. He's the one that did not complete it, and he's the one that has to deal with his buyers on this.
I agree with Hazel.
Baruch, any comments on that?
Well, the only thing that I can say here, it's a goodwill step. I had asked for a reduction in the bond, and if you feel that you'd feel better, I will not chase the reduction in the bond, for now. And it's a humongous bond for what the amount of work is left. I don't know why I was so concerned. It's just too much money. I think, in my estimation, the maximum amount of money that we would have to spend after that pavement, including the pavement, is about $100,000 at the very most. And I got $430,000 sitting there in the bond. I won't ask for the bond reduction to make everybody relieved, and then let him have his occupancy permit for 14, because I lived up to everything that you asked me to do there, to hold the people off and make this the last unit and what have you. I don't want to punish him for something like this, and I will take the bond reduction back and just wait on it.
There's semantics here, but we didn't ask you to build this project. You asked us, okay? You came to us with these plans, and you said you were going to build it.
Right.
And you haven't built it, right? You built some of it, but you haven't built it. So I just, you know, I am really sympathetic to the buyer here. I gotta say, I don't want to hold them up for this, but I don't know what else we can do. Jim, do you have any ideas?
I think until we hear back from Lisa, there's nothing we can do.
John, I couldn't hear you.
I think until we hear back from Lisa, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, I really would like to know what her estimate is to finish it, because if the bond is half of it.
I mean, I'm not in favor of reducing the bond, even if it's less. There's been no goodwill from the developer's side.
And I think we, as a planning board, have an obligation to see that this project is done the way it was supposed to be done.
Well, I agree with that, but I think our method of enforcing that is what I'm concerned
I
about.
know, but what I'm, but
You know,
that's,
we're severely affecting real people.
but it's not us that are affecting them. It's the fact that he, Mr. Ansari, who is the builder, is affecting them.
Yeah.
And so this is not our problem in the sense that this has not been completed. We moved through, I mean, we threw any number of site plans to get things accomplished, to get COs.
That's a good point, Hazel. I mean, we
gave him an earlier CO.
we have given a lot of concessions over the course of this project. And I just, at some point, you have to toe the line. I don't know. I'm on the fence here. I agree, though. We need to hear from Lisa. Well, anyway,
So what happens if we do give the CO and the remaining amount of work lines up with this bond and Fruit doesn't do the work?
well, at some point, we would, Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to explain the process. So you have to accept the form of security that's allowed by the state subdivision control law, which are all referenced in our local subdivision rules. One of them is the possibility of using an insurance bond, a surety bond, which is what this is. You could take a cash bond, you could take a loan from a bank, a tri-party agreement, or you could take the lots, or you can take an insurance bond, a surety bond. And that's what we have, a surety bond. The way a surety bond works is whoever is going to claim it must do the work up front and then get reimbursed. So only one other time in the 31 years I've been here has a default occurred, and I had to go to town meeting and ask the voters for the money up front so they could be reimbursed later. And the town has to pay prevailing wage, so it's going to cost the insurance company more than it would cost the town more than it would cost them to do the work, rather. So that's the only ace in the hole that you have. But the problem is the planning board has to ask the town for the money, and then we get reimbursed. That's not a good option. If we had cash, that would be completely
Well, let me ask you
different.
this then. Can he provide us an additional cash bond? I mean, you collected a working deposit on all of these, right? So could he provide an additional cash bond of, say, 50% of the 430
He's willing to.
to cover any
I think
contingencies?
you need to know what the value of the outstanding work items are.
Well, you said you guys would like to wait till Lisa comes back to reevaluate the bond, right? Isn't that what I'm hearing?
Right.
Okay.
And if she says it's less than the 430, then, you know.
A hell of a lot less than four, not just a little less.
Okay, I've heard you say that already, but I'm going to listen.
Okay,
to
so when
the
she
town
says it's less than $430,000, then we're all covered, right?
Yeah, but the problem is, it's our responsibility as a town to make sure this work gets done, whether there's a bond out there or not. How are we going to have, we're going to end up, I mean, you have your bond, Jim just explained the procedure. So you don't do the work, you don't get it done. We're in a situation where we have to make sure that we go to the town, get the money, collect for the bond.
It's going to
So-
cost more than the 430
So
Well, that's what
where
I'm
are we?
suggesting. If he posted an additional bond, would that,
in cash.
Yeah, the only possible way to do this is that to take Lisa's estimate, look at this estimate, come to a decision on what a cash bond would be that would cover this, so we would not have to go to the town, and then we could move forward. But it would have to be cash, the bond would have to be changed from a surety to a cash bond. So if the town has to go out and do this work, we have the money to do with it without having to go back to the town for it.
the work is in progress right now. We're chipping away at everything, so I don't know I can't put up any more cash bond than more than $430,000 that's there that you can use. I mean, that's not even in my cards anyhow, putting up another cash bond. It's unfair. So, for 4 years worth of work, there is no reduction in bond, but instead of that, just saying, no, put up more bond. I mean,
I think what's unfair is collecting money from buyers and not delivering a project. That's not fair. So I don't think you can lecture us on what's fair and what's not fair. I don't even want to hear it.
Yeah,
It's disgusting. I'm fed up with it.
Mark, if I may?
Go ahead.
As part of the consideration too, albeit those suggestions about cash bond are an excellent idea, somehow it'd be helpful to tie in the clubhouse in that commercial building that's been built, because those are likely to never be completed also. There's nothing to actually force them to complete either of those projects at any point in time. I'm not exactly sure how you tie it in, but or if you can include it as part of a cash bond. Part of it's a time frame. I have a bad feeling based on Mr. Ansari's previous history that we're probably having the same conversation a year from now. I just want to make sure I went on the record for that.
All right, so I'm not really hearing, I'm hearing pretty much a consensus from the board that we're not going to reduce the bond, and we're not going to release the occupancy permits, at least until we hear from town engineer to know what the cost of the remaining items, including the clubhouse and the commercial unit.
Yeah, at least the commercial unit that is built. And if you end up coming up with an agreement to swap out projects or whatever, you can also build in some safeguards at that point in time.
Right. All right, so I think we need to put this on our agenda for the 15th. I don't really see that we can take any action now, unless you want a vote. I mean,
You don't need to.
There's no action to be taken. All right, we'll see you on the 15th as far as that goes. I know you wanted to discuss, you had sent the board a concept plan, or two concept plans for additional units at Village Commons. Has everyone had a chance to look at those? They just came in today.
I don't want to discuss them right now. I need to look at them further.
Okay.
I'd like to hold off discussing.
Anybody else? Okay. So, Farouk, unfortunately, those came in pretty late today for everybody to get a look at those. I think we should also continue that discussion on the 15th.
all right, I did my best to try to get those plans done within a few days. That's all I had.
No, it was short notice, and I appreciate the effort
Yeah.
you put in. I can tell you my initial reaction of it is, you went to 13 two-bedrooms instead of 12. I thought we had discussed 12 two-bedrooms, and I personally would support all of the units in an apartment building. It looks like you've broken out at least 3 units, and then one of the concepts even more into townhouses. I don't agree with that, but I don't want to get too into that discussion now because no one else has had a chance to really look at that. So those are just my initial reaction. I do want to hear from the rest of the board.
So you would be discussing that in the next meeting, is that what you're saying?
Right,
Okay.
right. So we're going to continue this to the 15th as well. I think that's all we need for tonight.
But I have sent you the PDF, so you'll probably get a chance to look at them, between now and the 15th.
Oh, we'll have a chance to look at it
Yeah.
between now and the 15th.
Okay.
Sir, did you want to address the board?
Hi everyone. So I am the buyer of the property, like 14 Danya Drive, and I just wanted to present my case to the city. Yes.
Could you just state your name?
Yeah, my name is Govardhanan, So yeah, I've been patiently waiting for the house to be completed for almost 2 years, and I wasn't aware of, I know that there was an affordable which was supposed to be built, but I had no clue that the affordable, my home was dependent on the affordable. And 2 years, and right now, just when I thought I could move into the house, because the affordable is completed, I'm again hearing that this may not happen. And I have elderly people who live with me. I have a 1-year-old. I have a wife. She's taking care of my son today, so she couldn't make it. But so yeah, like to summarize, we've been living on a month-on-month lease for almost a year and a half, and there's a chance that my apartment may not allow us to continue to be on month-on-month lease, and also there's a good chance that if you guys do not let us get the CO, then we could even miss out the chance of buying this house, just mainly because how crazy the interest rate has been. And had I known about any of this before, I wouldn't have even stepped on into this property. I'm just a common man with a limited knowledge. I just thought that I'm doing the right thing to my family, right? Like what everyone does. Like I just looked at a property on Redfin that I liked, and I met with the builder, and everything seems to be like straightforward. So I paid the down payment, and I've been waiting ever since. And this is a shocker to me, and I hope you guys can help me out. And I just kind of feel that just because mine is the last unit, I'm holding amount of responsibility on this, and the city is taking leverage based out of my unit. But I think what's happening to me personally, no disrespect, I'm sorry, but I don't think it's fair, because I wasn't aware of any of this. I wasn't even aware that the city would be involved in a new construction like this. That's the amount of knowledge I had. So yeah, I just wanted to present my case to you guys, and hope you guys would consider any decisions that you make, have me in your mind.
So I've expressed my sympathy, and I don't know if anyone else wants to join me in that, but you have to understand that every deadline, every condition of the special permit that was set out 3 years ago, we've been dealing with this for 3 years. You may not have known about it, right? But we've been trying to get this project done, and it's not. So, you know, you may think that you're the only one, you know, your unit is being held up as some kind of leverage, but we're just trying to toe the line on conditions that were set out 3 years ago. So I don't know how we can continue to give concessions to this builder and maintain credibility. I mean, what's to stop him from, what's to ensure us from getting this project done? I don't understand how we can do that.
But I understand, but like I said, you're not penalizing the builder, but you're pushing my chains of even buying a house. And I've been waiting for this house for 2 years. And yeah, to be honest, I had no idea.
I am very sympathetic also, but I think if you talk to other people, you're not the only person that's been held up this way. And it is all the result of the builder who we have been trying to work with. So, you know, we're doing the best we can to see that the project is completed the way it's supposed to be for the benefit of everybody that lives over there.
Thank you for coming in.
Yeah.
We're going to take this up again on the 15th.
Sure.
Say one more thing. So I understand your position that you're in, and it's a very personal position that you're in. I think one of the perspectives that maybe you're not seeing is that the board operates on behalf of the town. And if this work doesn't get done, the town is going to be responsible for the work and the fee. So while it feels like you're being held hostage by this unit, if we don't finish the permit as it was set out and do the conditions as it was set out, the town as a whole is going to be paying for the builder and their lack of finishing the project. So it's a tough decision to make, because we obviously understand your personal issues and troubles and stuff like that, but we also have to look at the town side, and we're responsible to the town as a whole. And if we put the town's interests aside to fulfill your interests, that's something that we're not really supposed to be doing. And then that just sets it up for another chance, the builder, to do that same thing down the road. So it's really painful for you, and I understand that. It's just we also have other interests, the town in particular, that we need to look out for while also looking out for your interest as best we can. And we push not necessarily me, but the board has pushed this developer to do this work in a timely fashion. It just hasn't happened. And so the board has limited tools to force that to happen. And unfortunately, the certificate of occupancy for your unit is the last tool that we have. Otherwise, if we grant that C of O for your unit, the builder can walk away and do no more work on the property and would not have any penalties. The town would then have to take this bond that we've been talking about and use it to finish the work, which we're concerned this bond amount isn't enough to finish the work. And so then the town would have to basically pay for the rest of the work.
I understand.
So just wanted to give you a different perspective as to where we're coming from and not trying to, use you as leverage, but it's a little bit bigger than just your issue with the developer.
And my also question is, when you put your working deposit down, what was the timeline given for your house being completed?
There was no written timeline. It was just by word of mouth, 6 months.
6 months?
Yes.
Okay, so again, we're taking this up on the 15th. I think we made a decision, or, I don't want to say made a decision, but we have to get some more information from the town engineer before we can make a decision.
Got it.
Unfortunately, she's on vacation. We're going to take this up again on the 15th, see what progress, if any, has been made, and that's going to be the end of it for tonight.
Okay, so on 15th, we'll have like a final decision whether or not.
Can't guarantee that, but
Okay.
we're going to discuss it again on the 15th, and I would like to come to a final decision on the 15th.
Understood.
I would like, all right, let's move on.
Thank you.
Okay? All right. Farouk, thank you for coming in. We'll see you on the 15th.
15th? Yes.
And Farouk, when Lisa returns from vacation at the end of this week, so next week, reach out to her right away.
When is she coming back? 9th? Next week.
Yes, next Monday.
Week, okay. Well, then, yeah, then we can work it out, yeah.
All right, that's, I think everything on the agenda. We did have some, another item I wanted to discuss with you that we're going to put on the agenda for the 15th, but we had a chance to get the town assessor in to give us some background on the differences between dual tax rate and a single tax rate. I guess the select board would like us to weigh in on that before their meeting on the 22nd. And since I'm on the Board of Assessors, so I have a pretty good idea of what the differences are, but I wanted to make sure everybody on the board understood that so we can make an informed recommendation. Okay? John, name?
Hi, John Steinberg, Chief Assessor. I don't really know what that means, but I guess I'm happy to field any questions relative to a
John,
single or split tax rate.
I was hoping you could give us some background on the two as far as, how the benefits, the drawbacks to each one.
Sure. Well, the one thing I would do is direct everyone to our website, only in that there's been lots of presentations that are downloadable that you can see. Go to Westborough TV. It is thrilling viewing for the family and kids to see all my presentations in the last month. In a nutshell, the property is valued using different class types, residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property. The percentage of those values with a single tax rate lay out the percent of the tax levy that is borne by each class. The Board of Selectmen have the opportunity to shift a portion of the levy from the residential class to the commercial, industrial, and personal property tax. In essence, what they are doing is they are saying right now we have 70% residential property and 30% non-residential property. So normally, under normal circumstances with a single tax rate, you would have 70% of the taxes borne by the residential class and 30% borne by the non-residential classes. Essentially, what you could do is you could take a percent up to 50% of the commercial, so not to get into the weeds with the numbers, but 50% of that 30%, so another 15%, and shift it from that residential class back to the commercial class. So in essence, lowering the 70% of the burden that would be borne by commercial, industrial, and personal, lowering the 70% borne by the residential taxpayers and increasing the burden on the commercial, industrial, and personal property taxes, and thus splitting the rate, creating a higher commercial, industrial, personal property tax rate than you would have residential rate. And the reason for doing this is to provide tax relief. Very simply put, I mean, the taxes have been going up steadily in this town. As you saw at town meeting, the projections are that they're going up again. And so there's been lots of conversation relative to affording tax relief. This is a decision made by the Board of Selectmen. They make it every year at the tax classification hearing, which will be on November 22nd. It is open to the public. The public can speak their minds relative to their opinion as to whether or not you split the tax rate. The arguments against it are a number. Many of the from the business community came out and spoke at the public forum recently relative to its impact on commercial industrial growth and new construction. Some people don't believe that it does. I can tell you that income properties, commercial, industrial properties are valued using the income approach, and when the taxes are higher on those properties, it increases the expenses on the properties. Many of the expenses are not borne by the property owners, they're passed on to the businesses. So that increased tax burden gets passed on to those businesses and tenants that are paying. So if I were running a business and I had a choice of going between one community or another, and I had higher expenses in one versus another, where would you choose to go? Now, there's anecdotal evidence, there's no raw numbers, and what I always say is you don't know what you don't get. So when companies are considering coming from one town to the next, they consider many options. Obviously, location is a big one, right? But being in Westborough and their great location is not always first and foremost on some company's mind, so they may weigh other factors. Not being in their shoes, I can't speak to how much weight they give any one factor.
Joel, can I ask, John, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is it possible to do a graduated type change in the tax schedule so that, for example, I mean, you said we can go up to like 15%. And so is there any thought about doing a gradual change so that, for example, year one might be a 5%, year two, another 5%, or, you know, space it out and do it that way, which would hit the commercial, non-residential portion not as hard in one gasp, but give them a chance to kind of get used to it, see how things are going, and it would still give a benefit to the residential at the same time.
Yes, Hazel, thank you. Each year, it's a decision that can be made at any percentage.
Right.
So one of the things that we demonstrated in one of the recent presentations is if you decided in this year you wanted to provide potential tax relief and say hypothetically shifted 5%, right? Unless you continue to shift and increase, the taxes still continue to go up. If you just stayed level at 5%, because taxes are really driven by the spending, you know, it's the spending that's driving the tax increase. You know, the shifting of the value from commercial to residential passes some of that burden on, which increases the burden on the residential. But the long and short of it is, as long as taxes go up, you know, that's why you see demonstration of many communities who have gone to the max continue to stay at the max. But yes, to answer your question, I mean, they could choose each year to, depending on what was going on, to go one way or the other. Each year, it's an independent decision based upon the factors from that year. One of the challenges relative to interpreting any impact is it's not like flipping a switch.
No, I know.
You know,
Yeah.
and so you never really know. And again, you don't know what you don't get. And so it's really an amorphous thing relative to sort of wrapping your hands around any long-term impact or trickle down from any increases, because it does happen over time.
What would if Westborough were to do a split rate, what would the residential and then the commercial rate look like?
It's up to the Board of Selectmen. At the classification hearing, I'll present them with certain scenarios, so they'll have an option as to how much they want to shift one way or the other, and the more they shift, the greater the tax relief. There's almost a 10 times result, so if an average single-family house is saving $200, the average commercial property, it's costing them $2,000. That's generally the ratio that you see going on. So there's an exponential impact there.
So, John, you said that the residential portion of town, of our valuation is about 70%?
Yes.
Has that gone up because
It has continually gone up. But when you look at where the new construction is, you know, there was a big jump towards residential when they built Westborough Village, right? Because that's the residential side. And for years, you had a lot more residential new construction than you had commercial new construction. You know, since West Park Drive was built, and some of those other complexes, there hasn't been a lot of big development. Now, we have some now. We have some good big development with the Amazon project going on and some of the other projects that are coming on, and that is helping. I think when the values are done this year, you'll see that there is some substantial offset there. Right. But we also have the negative impact of commercial. So you have seen that trend continue. And then one of the issues that you have now is you have the acceleration of value in residential at a faster pace than the increase in value in commercial, and that's part of the reason you see it.
Right, and I ask that question because let's say we have a $100 million budget, which is a nice round number, and it stays the same from one year to the next, but if you're at 65% residential, that's $65 million in taxes that, you know, the residential has to pay. If that goes up to 70%, even if the budget doesn't change, that's $5 million more, right? So that's part of the reason why everyone's taxes are up?
Well, the budget didn't stay the same, so I don't really know how to answer the question.
But in theory,
if what you're saying is it's shifting the percentage, if everything was the same, and the value of the residential went up to, instead of 70-30, it was 75-25, 75% of the taxes would be borne by the residential class. However, what's going on within that residential class would dictate how that gets distributed. So if the average single family stayed the same, but the condo values went up, your average single family tax bill, you know, I mean, when you start looking at the numbers independently, and it's hard to really engage the entirety of the picture. There's so many moving parts that it's difficult to simplify it and boil it down. I mean, the reality is, as we've discussed, is that the taxes go up as a result of the spending, the increase in the valuation and the strong average single family value compared to the relatively flat commercial property. The industrial property is a whole different market. The industrial property values have been very strong. So you'll see the industrial property values going up, but commercial not. And again, lots of moving parts.
right, I guess what I'm saying is that even if the tax rate stayed the same and everything else stayed the same, just the fact that that burden's shifting means that my taxes are going to go up. Is that right?
Would go down if we shifted to.
No, again, it depends. If there was a single rate, right, and it was just an increase in the residential value,
Right.
right, it would depend on whose value is going up. You know, again, if your house value stayed the same
Right.
and all the condos went up, your taxes aren't going to change. You know, even within a given year, you have some home values that will go up 18%, some that'll go up 20, some that'll only go up 5 because you have a housing market that is shifting. So, you know, just because it's shifting, it'll shift to the residential class.
No,
how
and
you
I'm just saying that
evaluate that.
we all know that the residential market has gone way up over the last 10 years at least, and I don't see the commercial values going up at that same rate.
Correct.
And that, to me, is a big part of that, of what we're experiencing with our tax increases.
This year it is. I mean, this year, that's why you're seeing a shift. You know, looking historically at the shift from commercial to residential has gradually gone up over the last few years, anywhere from 0.5% to as high as, I think a few years ago, there was a 2% swing. Okay, and you're going to see it again this year because you're right of that ratio of what's the increase in values one. But what you're going to see is you're going to see a big drop in the tax rate because all the values went up. But again, if all the values went up.
Okay, so then if, let's say, you know, the commercial tax rate goes up, a lot of commercial leases are triple net, right? So they pass that along to the tenants. But are those tenants are those rents just going to increase, or is the income going to go down, and then that's going to affect the values of commercial buildings even more?
Well, so yeah, if it's in a triple net, I mean, it gets passed on to the tenant in the form of you know, expenses above their rent, and then they have to look at where their costs are. You know, I mean, that's one of the things that happened through COVID is the you know, you see a lot of empty parking lots, and that's not always reflective of what's the occupancy of those buildings. But when it comes time to renew, that's where they really feel it. And that's what they felt during COVID in the following year, is the renewals were really where they're getting hit. And then the landlord has to take on all those expenses. And then the new people coming in have to look at what's it going to cost them to move into a property on West Park Drive. They're going to have their rent, and then they're going to have their CAM charges that are going to include the taxes. How much is that going to be?
Right, but wouldn't they, in order to stay competitive, the base rent would have to go down? Or is
you would think, or they
that just drive the commercial values
that would
down
drive the
even
commercial
more?
values down,
And then that
like a vicious
that would
circle.
offset the
Increase.
that the split rate would.
Yeah.
It's a vicious circle. It chases itself down the rabbit hole.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't have any other questions on that, but I know we're going to put that on the agenda for the 15th
22nd,
and try and take
sorry,
a
the
vote as
15th.
to what our recommendation would be for their meeting on the 22nd. John's given us a suggestion that there's some presentations, if everybody wants to do their homework on that.
It's a good presentation. I've seen it a couple times
I
live.
was just scrolling through. I actually learned something from it just now.
Yeah, I wanted to say something. So you probably heard me say this before, and I know John's heard me say this before, that the EDC discussed this morning, and they voted unanimously to support a single tax rate. That John talked about the increased cost to do business. And as you know, the EDC is made up of business owners. And the business owners will tell you about the cost to do business and what taxes does to their business plan when they go to a lender and ask for a business loan. If you're in a community where you have a graduated tax rate or classification, and there's a community next door that has similar space and the taxes are less, you're going to go where your expenses are less, you're going to go where the commercial tax rate is lower or where there's a single tax rate like in Westborough. John also mentioned a very good point, and I think that Mark asked this question, will the property values decrease if you increase the tax or you introduce classification? Absolutely they do. The values of commercial properties decrease because it costs more to purchase and maintain property in a community that has classification. I've always been on the side of a single tax rate. When I first came here 31 years ago, I didn't really understand it all that well, but I've gotten a huge education. My advice, if anyone asked me, would be to stay with a single tax rate.
Okay, what other business do we want to take? John, thanks for coming
Yeah,
over.
Mark, if I could just say one other thing. If people watch those videos and they have questions, they can certainly feel free to reach out to me. I would urge people to, come on the 22nd. And I would always say, as people who have discussed it with me, the best way really to incent growth is through what you folks do, is the zoning. Is looking at the areas and how they're zoned and, look at the master plan. And I think that the town has done a good job of that. So just keep it up.
Thanks, John. All right.
Thanks, John.
Any other business for tonight? I think we had some minutes. Hazel, do we have minutes?
On minutes, we have, I think it was September 20th was corrected. So I would just like to move that we accept the minutes for September 20th as corrected.
I'll second that. Any discussion, comments? All those in favor of approving the minutes for September 20th, that's 5-0. Jim Robbins, any other business?
No, you'll get a draft agenda either at the end of this week or the first of next week, just so you can see what will be on the meeting. And just to kind of get up to speed about the project that was in here at the end, I would encourage you to go and take a look at Village Commons so you can understand the state of the project. If you haven't been out there in the last couple of weeks, please go take a look. I think you'll understand why we're concerned about the security bond.
Okay.
Are we doing master plan implementation committee on the next meeting?
Yeah, good, thank you, John. On the 15th, we're going to meet early. The
6
Master
p.m.
Plan Implementation Committee is going to meet early. There's no requirement that the planning board has to be there, but I'm hoping that you can be there. It's a kickoff session for that committee. We're not going to do any heavy lifting at that meeting other than setting a regular meeting date, electing a chair, and, listening, VHB, a presentation on the mission and purpose of that implementation committee.
And what time?
It'd be at 6 o'clock, right? 6
o'clock.
o'clock.
I've asked Donnie, yes, here. I've asked Donnie Goris-Kobe from VHB to provide an agenda, just so that people can get that early enough to understand what they'll be discussing.
All right, so that our official planning meeting will not start till 7 that night, is that correct?
Well, I think we
Or are you
need to
gonna shoot
post
for
a meeting.
6:30
I think we need to
still?
post a meeting for 6 because we'll all be, if we're all at the implementation committee, I don't want there to be an accusation
Okay.
that we're.
Yeah, we'll make it clear in the posting. We'll say the Master Plan Implementation Committee and the Planning Board.
That's fine.
All right.
Okay.
So if you could try to be there early, I know you can't make it.
Will that, the implementation meeting kickoff, will that be recorded as well if we're starting our meeting at 6, so I can watch that as well?
Yeah, that'll be recorded.
All right, very
Yeah.
Okay.
But is our regular agenda going to start at 6:30? Because that's going to be
We're going to post it
long
for
meeting.
6:30, but if the implementation committee runs long, we may have to delay the start of our regular meeting. I'm hoping it doesn't run much longer than a half an hour. Like I said, there's not a huge, I don't expect a lot of discussion other than, maybe trying to figure out a meeting date. Kristen's put out a poll. Hopefully the results of that will enable us to arrive at a meeting date and time without much controversy. But we'll see how that goes. Sometimes I can't get all 5 of us.
With that many people in the room, I think it's going to take a little bit longer than you think, because there'll be questions. With the number of people that are on this committee, I think there'll be questions. You're
I
going to need
agree.
more than a half hour.
So I expect that we won't start right at 6:30. If, I think it'll probably be closer to 7.
I keep it down.
Do we have 180, 182?
On that
Are they going to
agenda.
be presenting?
They may or may not. I don't know if they're going to be ready. We won't have the earth moving permit because you continued it to December this evening. I don't know about Farouk. You won't have anything else.
I'm just thinking because if 180 and 182, we're going to have a crowd if they're presenting.
That's true.
So we just, yeah.
Trying to nail that down.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, I don't want to make them sit around for
maybe we can find out whether closer to the date, because we could then get information out to the residents there that it's going to be continued so that we don't have them there. So see if we can get some more lead-in from their council as to whether, as we get closer, whether they'll be able to, whether they're going to ask for an adjournment.
Why don't we do
We
this?
don't want it the day before.
Why don't we let the applicant at 180 and 182 and the neighbors know that we're not going to start that till at least 7. And if we get done with the implementation committee early, we have plenty of other business on that agenda that we can take up so that we don't get all those people here at 6:30 and they wait around for 45 minutes. We can probably start them.
So if you have the continuation of 182 and you have a full presentation, let's say, and then you have one Gleason Street, Village Commons, and 190 to 210 Oak Street. Those are 2 long hearings. So I think that it's better to, and it's just my advice, that to post both of those at 7 p.m. and take up any old business if there's time between 6:30 and 7.
So we can take up the tax thing that we just discussed. There's definitely going to be other business on that agenda.
Village Commons, we can discuss then.
Yeah, so why don't we,
Have the 2
why don't you
hearings.
just go ahead and post those for 7?
Okay.
That way, anybody who just references the agenda will understand, in case there's somebody, but if you could get the word out to at least the Walker Meadow people that
We will
we're
do
not gonna
that.
start till 7 that
And
night.
also, I do think if they're going to ask for a continuance, they don't have to do it the day before we're meeting. I mean, they're going to have to make a decision earlier the following week so that we can get information out to the Walker Meadow people and don't have them showing up and then having to continue it to the next day. I mean, I don't think that's fair to anybody.
They did that this time, and I spoke with the Walker Meadow representatives to
Right,
make
it's
sure.
the first time, though, that's happened, really, where they've had sufficient notice.
No, and I agree with that, but apparently they had enough time to not come tonight, because no one came.
Yeah, but
So-
this is the first time I'm saying that we had noticed beforehand as far as the continuation goes, so that they could be notified.
Hazel, I
and are
completely
coming.
agree with you. I would like to know by Thursday of the week before what's on our agenda, what we're going to hear about, and get every shred of, paperwork in. But
Right.
as you can see,
I mean, they can't always be true, but I'm sure Walker Meadow will be able to they will know. I mean, the dealership will know whether they're going to be ready or not.
Right. All right, so let's,
Would you like a motion to adjourn?
before we do anything else?
No.
Yeah, go ahead, Hazel.
Okay, I move that we adjourn.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor? That's 5-0. See you on the 15th.
I was going to make it after the bathroom so bad.
Bye, Pete.